Hello everybody and welcome to week 2 of the English as a Medium of Instruction for Academics, and this is your video update. And I thought I'd start with an interesting point that ideally we would name this course English as a Medium of Education. So we chose English as a Medium of Instruction because that's what people look for. That's how people kind of call this activity when they engage with it. But the way we talk about it here in Southampton, and more people are talking about it around the world, is English as a Medium of Education. And if you have a comment on that, why you think that is, and what the implications of that are, then please go to step 3.17, so the video for next week. Add your comments there. So why English as a Medium of Education, and what you think changes when we focus on medium of education rather than medium of instruction. So please post there, and also post any questions that you would like us to comment on in that step, and we will respond to you very happily. So yeah, welcome to this week. And I think I'll begin by handing over to Mary for your thoughts on what people have been discussing this week.
Thank you, Rob. So many very valuable points have been raised during the week, and I'm just going to pick out one, and it might at first not seem essential to EMI, EME, whatever you call it, but one of the main themes in this week is the voice, the use of the voice, and how we use the voice, how we control our voice, the speed at which we're speaking, and so on. The voice showing our passion for our subject, and showing our enthusiasm, etc. We have to remind ourselves as teachers, whether we're EME teachers or any other kind of teacher, whatever label teacher we put on ourselves, our voice is our tool, our most important tool, therefore we have to look after it. So it comes down to basic things such as, and I have my prop ready, water or a soft drink to keep sipping so that your voice is lubricated. And, having your vocal apparatus in good working order, which means, breathing and exercising your shoulders so that the blood is flowing to your brain. All of these things can help projection of the voice. And this is something to bear in mind, because at the moment, I don't stand in front of a classroom. I don't know if you do, but I'm working from home the whole time. So I'm talking normally, naturally. And I think it might have been you, Rob, who mentioned this a couple of days ago when we were talking, that when we then move into the face-to-face situation, actually in front of a group of students in a real classroom, we have to project more. So we have to look after our voice. And if you have any tips to pass on about looking after your voice, I would be very, very grateful. And I think this is something we can really share to help one another. Because my question is, given our context of EME and the widely differing audiences that we have to cater for and perhaps control our voice for, therefore, for me, I think that this is more and more important for us in our particular situations. So it's really a request to you to give me some advice, because I may be returning to teaching in the face-to-face live physical classroom for some things in the new year, and I do want to address this issue. I want to look after myself. We as teachers have to look after ourselves, and our voice is our main tool. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Rob, that you'd like to pick up on.
Absolutely. I was just going to mention what you normally mention. We're swapping roles now, but emotion.
What normally? Emotion.
Emotion. But the fact that, again, we said it's not, when we look at teaching through English, we're not normally looking at something that's different from teaching in another language. but some aspects of the process become harder or more important. And I think nerves is another area, because that really affects the voice. And I know when I've given presentations where I've been absolutely petrified of the occasion and the audience, yeah, it affects your voice. You're not so lubricated. Your mouth goes dry. You rely on, sometimes you can't rely on your breathing because your breathing is going wild. So it's you know, things like that. And when people teach in a language that's not their first language, it's likely they're going to become more nervous, more anxious, and have to be more conscious of exactly what you're talking about. So
absolutely.
yeah,
So
that was my
it
thought.
is this like holistic, and that's a word that I often use in this kind of context. It is this holistic approach to how we are you know, teaching, speaking to our audience, that we have to be aware of, because our ultimate goal is to give our learners of our very best. We want to do the best that we can for our learners, because we do care about them. So looking after yourself, and particularly, you know, this part of the body, is essential. You know, she says, rolling her shoulders as an example. But yeah,
we could turn this into an exercise video, I think.
We could have an exercise video, couldn't we? Okay, all right. Back to you, Rob.
Yeah. So, and I would add to that I wanted to focus particularly on the step where we asked you to share an EMI lecture, or EME lecture, I should say. And I find this very interesting for two reasons. Number one, the comments we normally get, although we discuss language a lot, and language in EME is quite controversial and people have different views about it. But when you watch education in action, people always comment on the style, the communication, the way it is achieved, never on the accent or the specific language that's used, you know, like syntax or sentence structure. That's just one observation, is that it's really important to think that, using Mary's word, holistic, your students will have a holistic view of your performance. You know, they will not isolate one part of the performance and say, oh, I don't like her accent, or I don't like the way he structures sentences. They're going to take the whole thing as a picture. And the other thing just to mention here is I find it very interesting that people often go to TED Talks. And this, for me, is something quite interesting related to the EME, the education part, where, as you probably are aware, if you go into an educational setting, you have to think about, okay, you know, where's the dialogue, where's the checking, where are the students bringing something to me? And often we look for these slick performances, which probably in most educational settings, unless you are a very charismatic person naturally, they might be seen as quite false, quite you know, like you're showing off, like you're being a bit too slick, which often would kind of create an identity gap between you as the performer, this slick, smooth performer who makes everything look great, and the students who want like this human connection. They want to communicate, they want to be, you know, in some way, not necessarily speaking, but maybe participating in this environment. So I think it's interesting, the comments that you make about these videos and about the qualities of the speaker, but also that those speakers are not really representative of the role of most educators in EME. So it's nice to see them and it's nice to think about what they're doing, but probably best not to be intimidated by that and think that you have to do a TED Talk every time you step in front of students, you know, because that's, yeah, oh, what a task that would be. So I think something to think about, you know, how you can prepare students, what tasks they can be involved with, you know, what they do before, what they can do during, and what they can do after the class to kind of lessen the responsibility of the teacher to deliver. So I think that would be my main comment there. And also just another observation, I don't know if you've noticed, Mary, but the native speaker conversation and the sort of English as a lingua franca discussions we have are far less controversial now than they used to be.
Yes.
So this is in the 13th run of the MOOC, and it's just very interesting that people accept the idea that, you know, that speakers of English who are using English should not conform to one model or one style of an American or a British person. But we used to have people on the MOOC, you know, in the first, second and third runs who would really argue, no, you should, you know, learners should conform to standard English, and standard English is American or British. You know, so it's really interesting to see that it seems the ideas people bring to the MOOC are changing. So that, I think that's really positive.
Yes, I second that. And it is interesting how that shift has happened over the last, what, is it 4 or 5 years? I can't really remember. But, you know, there are obviously a lot of people out there who perhaps have that older, more conventional view of having to speak standard British, standard American English, and so on. But the voices are quieter now, so that thinking is still there. But you know, it's the balance shifting, isn't it? Between, I suppose we shouldn't really overgeneralize and say there are two sides to it, because it's much more subtle than that. But yes, there is a definite shift, and we can be happy about that, and we can also encourage people who perhaps are a little unsure about, you know, how learners should be invited to perceive their English, you know, to relax about it and just say, look, the world is changing, and this is the reality of English in the world today, and not make a big thing out of it. Just say, this is it, accept, and move on.
Yeah.
And it's far less stressful and less pressurized. I wish, you know, examinations would change too, but
yeah,
that's the final frontier.
Yeah. Okay, so wonderful. Thank you very much. I think we will just add also, we encouraged you to comment on each other's comments and like each other's comments more, to create this kind of community involvement. And thank you to those of you who are doing that. We are seeing more replies rather than comments, and I think that creates a much more dialogue, which is very positive for this kind of course. So thank you very much, and do please continue doing that. And yeah, really good. Enjoyed reading comments, and as predicted, lots of people are still in week 1, so they'll probably find this video next week. But do keep going, and we hope you enjoy the course, and we're enjoying reading your input to it, because that's really what makes it, is people's ideas. We create the frame, but you create the course. So thank you very much for all your involvement, and we will see you next week. And as I said, do please comment with questions or ideas that you feel it would be useful to discuss. So thank you very much, and we will see you next week. Okay. Bye bye for now.
Bye.